I'm Shelby Scarborough. This is EOtv.
Welcome to EOtv. I'm Andrea Collins.
And I'm Randall Mauricio. This is your Entrepreneurs Organization webcast.
That's right. And today's show, we're preparing for the worst, not to say it's going to be negative.
That's right, Andrea. We'll have some tips from the former U.S. Secretary of Homeland Defense. Kind of a big deal, huh?
Yeah, that's very cool. And EO member Bill Begal shares how all businesses need to prepare for emergencies. And Erik Bolinder from Givens Pursley LLP has a tip of the week for us on exit strategies.
So, no more waiting. Let's get started.
Our latest issue of EO's Octane magazine is all about emergency preparedness, and so is this week's episode of EOtv. Our first story is brought to us by EODC member Shelby Scarborough. Shelby had the opportunity to interview the former U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security, Michael Chertoff. Take a look.
I'm Michael Chertoff. I was the second U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security from 2005 to 2009. And I'm now the chairman and managing principal of the Chertoff Group. We really focus on risk management and advice on security, and we do it both on the business side, advising people who want to invest in the area or expand in the area, and we also do it from what I call the customer side, people who are worried about their own risks, their own security, their own continuity. We help them at a strategic level understand what the challenges are from a 360-degree angle and how they might solve them. The real threat for our business is going to be the question of its people, its assets, its suppliers, and its customers. You have to make sure all four of those are protected. Obviously, your obligation to your people and your assets are physical security, cybersecurity, health. But you also have to look at your suppliers. If they're not performing and you're dependent on them, you're going to go out of business, no matter how good a job you do. So that means negotiating with them about what their, doing due diligence about what their security is, having alternative sources of supply, having a plan for resiliency. All of those are critical to make sure that your business will survive what is a very dangerous world. How would you deal with the issue of, for example, a pandemic flu where people had to work from home, or you had to send everybody but essential workers home? Basically, the challenge is to identify all of the potential downside hazards, look at where you are vulnerable, make a judgment about what's cost effective in terms of how to plug those vulnerabilities, but also think about how you can recover. No matter how good a job they do with their own people and their own business, if a critical supplier or a critical asset like energy or power are missing, they're going to wind up suffering the consequences. So you have to look upstream, and you have to also look downstream. You have to say, well, if I have customers and I'm still in business, but I can't get my product to them, how am I going to deal with that issue? So, I find the biggest problem people have in the issue of security is they don't look at the whole system. What people have to recognize that although the world is increasingly interdependent, that creates an element of fragility. Therefore, one of the key areas where I think there is an opportunity for technology is alternative pathways to get access to essential resources or essential services that you need for business continuity. Another area is health. It's not just a question of the doctor and the patient. Now, businesses have certain needs to make sure that they are minimizing the risk of, let's say, a pandemic or some kind of an illness that could incapacitate the workforce. So people who can provide solutions on issues like resiliency and public health that can be adapted for use by ordinary citizens or businesses or communities, I think are going to be in a very important area. In terms of crippling of public services, if you look at a hurricane season, we often have situations where power lines are down, food and water is out. So we have lived through this experience, but anybody who believes it hasn't happened and it's not happening is not reading the newspapers. A lot of what gets people nervous about protecting themselves is they feel it's difficult, alien, and therefore they feel disempowered. These are all avenues and forums where small business can get access to some of the tools and expertise that's out there so they can feel empowered to protect themselves.
In this tip of the week, EO Idaho member Erik Bolinder shares his thoughts about exit strategies. Are you prepared?
Hi, I'm Erik Bolinder from EO Idaho. My business is a law firm called Givens Pursley. We specialize in mergers and acquisitions, corporate transactions, commercial real estate development. And I'm here with your tip of the week. When you think about exit strategy, when are you thinking about exit strategy? Is it when you're trying to exit, or is it when you are just starting a business or acquiring a business or considering a merger? If it's the former, you've already made a mistake. But if you're thinking about buying a business or merging or starting a business, then is the time to think about the exit strategy and plan that exit strategy. Think about all the scenarios that will happen at the end of the life cycle of your business and put those scenarios and consider those scenarios when you put your agreements together, whether it's a partnership agreement, an operating agreement if you're an LLC, or corporate documentation. Let me give you an example of one exit strategy that one of my clients used. Two partners owning a business 50-50. You know what happens then when there's a desire to exit or when there's an impasse on a decision? They're deadlocked and they don't know what to do. So they made a decision in their documentation that whenever they had a disagreement, they would first try to mediate that disagreement. They would choose a mediator, an independent third party, to mediate that dispute. But then if that mediation didn't work, they would literally flip a hockey puck. One side of the hockey puck said one thing, the other side said the other thing. And they actually wrote that in their operating agreement. So they know what happens when there's an impasse. So they can exit if they really have to, just by flipping the hockey puck. I'm Erik Bolinder, and that's your tip of the week.
EODC member Bill Begal's company, Begal Enterprises, Inc., specializes in emergency disaster response and cleanup. Today, he shares with EOTV his tips on emergency preparedness and alternative strategies.
So you first need to figure out what your company's needs are. What's critical? Knowing where your data is, knowing how to get it, knowing what it's going to take. And with that, having good information so business owners can make smart business decisions. Let's say you're the best prepared business there is. You're insulated, you're in Fort Knox, you have power generators. But if your suppliers aren't properly prepared, well, then you're out of business. You can have access to your people, to your customers, to your clients, your suppliers, your vendors, then you're still in business no matter where you are. Tapes, CDs, thumb drives, all that information, I'd recommend putting it in a media cooler. That media cooler then goes in the safe. And that's something we've done. Keeping track of your computer models, what type of software you're running. Let's say you have a major fire, or I don't know, a tornado comes through, a little microburst rips the roof off your building, and then it rains all night. So how fast can you get that computer drop shipped? How fast, or who does your IT people, who do they work with on a regular basis? Big notifiable pink tags that I know I unplug one, it's the server. I unplug the other one, it's the phone system. I unplug the third one, it's my computer. Those on a power strip into a generator, we're back in business. So even larger companies, if you know you get 10 products from 3 different suppliers, you look for other suppliers into other parts of the United States. It depends on what your company determines or feels is most important to you. And once you identify it, do the diligence, finding out who around you maybe has had electrical concerns in the past. Find out if they have a preferred client or an emergency preparedness program. Revisit it maybe twice a year when you change the clocks. I would recommend to keep it in motion, keep it current. That way you're not scrambling looking for information or answers at 2:30 on a holiday weekend. I keep a file box in the trunk of my car has basic information, not business sensitive information, but basic information. That way I have it wherever we are.
That does it for us this week. Thanks for tuning in.
And thanks to Shelby from EODC for sharing her interview. It was so good with Michael Chertoff with us.
Yeah, also Bill Begal, Erik Bolinder for the great ideas, of course.
And speaking of those great ideas, do you have one for us today?
Always.
Always.
Okay. You don't have to see the whole staircase just to take the first few steps. Words of wisdom, Andrea.
Very nice.
Yeah.
We'll see you next week.